Thank you for joining us. We are going to take a minute while we're waiting for everybody to log in on Zoom. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for Series 2 of Ventum's CyberSmart Security Series, Protecting Your Online Identity. Isaac and I were just speaking about how excited we were that so many of you have shown such enthusiasm to register for our education series. Last session that we had was our first that we've hosted at Ventum, and we had over 200 people register. We were very thrilled and surprised by what positive feedback we had. We have created this obviously for our clients in mind, that we are trying to assist in your day-to-day lives of what may make things simplified for you and how it is we can share our expertise beyond just our offices. So thrilled to have you here. I'm Debbie McGrath. I am the Chief Marketing Officer at Ventum. Our CyberSmart series was created to equip our clients, advisors, as well as our partners with the practical knowledge to stay secure in an increasingly digital world. Our last session had such a great response with 200 people attending. And even more so, we had 95% of response rate telling us that they left having learned something, and that you encouraged us to continue the series, as well as provide us some feedback of what we could be doing better and what you would like to learn about in the future. So please, after today's session, there'll be another survey for you to complete. We want to know what we're doing well, what you'd like to learn about, and how it is we can continue such a useful series for you. So as our lives become more connected, so do our day-to-day risks. Protecting your online identity, your credentials, your personal information, as well as your digital footprint is now essential to safeguarding not just your privacy, but your financial well-being. At Ventum, we view this as a part of our broader commitment to you of how it is that we can serve you beyond traditional financial advice. Our goal is to help make you confident, provide you with position of making informed decisions, both in your portfolio and in your personal life. Today's session will be led by Isaac Márquez, our Ventum's Chief Technology Officer, who oversees our technology strategy and our cybersecurity initiatives. Isaac brings deep expertise in digital infrastructure and a passion for empowering others through education and awareness. Following his presentation, we're going to open the floor like we did last time for an open question and answer period. We welcome you to ask Isaac the questions that you have regarding today's topics. And with that, it's my pleasure to welcome Isaac. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us on the second session of Ventum's CyberSmart Series. It is great to see so many of you joining today, and the feedback we received was incredible. So this is reinforcing, how important these discussions are to all of us. In today's agenda, our topic will be your online identity, how to protect the digital version of yourself in a world that is increasingly connected. Whether you're trading, shopping, or simply staying in touch with friends, your identity is constantly at risk, exposure, and misuse. Our goal today is help to recognize those risks, understand how identify the theft happens of your identity, learn simple and effective ways to protect yourself and your family online. Cybersecurity is not just a department or an activity or a risk. It's shared responsibility. As my role as CTO, Chief Technology Officer, as well as Officer of Security, is to make sure that we're not only safeguarding our systems, but also empowering our people and clients to be proactive about their own digital safety. So to provide some context, the financial industry is the #1 target sector globally, and it ranks among the top 5 in Canada. So why is this? because attackers go where the money is. And that includes not just institutions, but also individuals. Whether you're an advisor, a client, a partner, a business owner, your personal data is valuable to them. That's why protecting your online identity is more important than ever. What's your online identity? And it's just more than a password, a username. It's the collection of information, accounts, and digital footprints that represent you on the internet, online. It includes your email, social media, banking applications, shopping history, and even your search behavior. If someone gains access to this identity, they can impersonate you. They can steal your money and create damage or reputation. Protecting your online identity means safeguarding not only your login credentials, but also your personal data, your reputation, and your access to services. So how can we protect your identity? We can start with these 6 essential safeguards that we can put in place as good habits when we conduct ourselves, when we're searching the internet, when being online. The first one will be think before you click. So this is a very common line that I like to use because these days there's a fast pace for everything. We try to be efficient, we try to be proactive, we try to react quickly, and that speed in life actually creates this type of risk in the cybersecurity world. So we need to take a moment, slow down, and make sure that we understand if we're triggering something, what are we reading, what are we clicking on, and is this actually necessary or correlates to an activity that we're actually doing. The next one will be to stay alert to phishing and social engineering attempts, which on our previous session, we spoke a little bit about it, phishing campaigns and how they generate strategies used in social media to create and to trick you into providing personal information or getting into access into your accounts. Use strong variated passwords, use multi-factor authentication, keep your systems updated, use firewalls and antiviruses. So these items, they might feel like it's too technical. However, we're gonna walk through them and we're gonna explain some of them more in detail. Securing your credentials. And we came up with top 10 probably best practices, nothing really too technical, but some good habits that we can put in place to make sure that we're protecting ourselves and using secure, strong credentials for the platforms that we use on a day-to-day basis. So credentials are the keys to the digital home. If they're weak or reused, they're easy targets. Let's walk through the 10 of them. The first one actually breaks down into a different complexity that we can set up or we can use when creating a strong, unique passwords. So making it at least 12 characters or longer, use a combination of letters, numbers, and symbols. Do not use personal data like your name, your last name, or family members' information. Combine unrelated words. Avoid words that are not directly in the dictionary. Change your password regularly and use a password manager. So I'm going to speak a little bit more the correlation between the number 5, which it seems avoid words that are in the dictionary, how we can avoid that and how we can understand that better without creating just using a word itself, and the use of password managers. So there's a correlation that I want to bring up a little bit further on the presentation and how we can simplify that, creating those strong passwords. The next one is never use your credentials. As you can see on this line, when you use the same password all over your applications, in this case, Instagram, Facebook, email, Twitter, LinkedIn, even on corporate accounts at work, you have to make sure that you create different passwords and never use these credentials. It's very, very dangerous to have the same credential, it can be exposed, and they're gonna obtain access to all your platforms and applications at the same time. Enable multi-factor authentication. This is a topic that is becoming more and more popular. It's been there for a couple of years already. However, not everybody was reinforced. Not all the sectors and the different domains were regulated to impose the use of multi-factor authentication. It's more often, and now these days, most of the platforms have built and developed this platform to have the multi-factor authentication, and it adds a strong second layer of protection to your accounts. Use a password manager to generate, store, and autofill complex credentials securely. We'll speak a little bit more about this, but this is going to help us create and reference to that use of not word in the dictionary, and also having a complex password that is going to be efficient. We're going to be talking about the password managers. Another item that we have to keep in mind is avoid sharing credentials. Never share credentials with family or friends or anybody else, right? So you have to make sure that you keep those to yourself and only use them when necessary. Rotate passwords regularly. Once again, we're going to make a reference to the password managers because that's going to help us alleviate this. We understand the headaches of remembering a lot of passwords. Trying to have different passwords, understand, come up with a strategy to create and build our passwords. So this is going to be helping us. So this is especially for highly sensitive accounts like banking or email, where we have to put a strong password in place. Beware of phishing attempts. Never enter credentials or suspicious links or attachments, right? Opening attachments, clicking on links. Once again, we got to slow down, think about it, and understand if it makes sense to take an action when we are interacting online and on the internet. Number 8 is keep your software and devices updated, and this prevents attackers from exploiting all vulnerabilities to steal your credentials. On a day-to-day, it's very simple. I mean, on companies, regulators, and firms, we kind of impose these updates, and pretty much we push them down. At a personal level, we try to avoid these ones because it creates an inconvenience for us. So we gotta take away a step back and understand that this is a risk on personal devices that we use at home, that we use these devices to access our personal banking, that we use this for transactions, for forms, for personal information. So it's as important to make sure that we take the time to apply the updates on the computers, make sure that they're patched, updated, and we have them secure, as well as implementing and making sure they have an antivirus in place. Log out from shared or public devices. Never save credentials on machines that you don't control. This is actually linked as well to another topic that we're going to speak a little bit later. These days, we don't use that much anymore, like the internet cafe. Back in those days when you used to log in, try to check your email, so browse something on the internet. We don't do that more often. Now we have our personal laptops, we have the cell phones, which is another computer that we carry all over the place, but we still have to make sure that when log in to different sites, we log out completely. And then I'm going to explain a little bit later why the logout is important when you're doing something online. So either a secure site or not, it's super important. So I'll make reference to that. Monitor for compromised accounts. Set up alerts, use your logins, and check break notifications. So I want to talk a little bit more about this. It's actually something that anyone can do at work or on the go at home. The goal is to find out if your email, passwords, or personal data has been exposed in a breach, and then take action before someone misuses that information. So there are simple ways that we can use to monitor for compromised accounts. There are free services that we can register and use. However, it might seem like a little bit more complicated. One of the best things that we can do, and it's easy, and everybody has access to them, is enable built-in password monitoring. So What I'm referring to is that Microsoft Edge, which is a common browser on the Windows platform, Google Chrome, and Safari all often offer password monitoring features. These tools alert you if any of your saved passwords have been leaked, and you will be prompted to change them immediately. For example, Microsoft Password Monitor scans the dark web for leaked credentials and notified users if the login information is exposed. So most of the time we try for convenience, we save a lot of information. We put our password, user ID, we put personal information on forms, and all this is remembered by your web browser. So best practice will be to type it manually and avoid saving all those credentials. If you do, there's an option, and you gotta take the time a few times, just go into your browser settings, review the password section, and there's gonna be an option to check for any passwords that they might be either compromised or some similar password or user ID that has been circulating the dark web. And these tools are gonna allow you to report, and they're gonna ask you to change it if it's a weak password or it's a password that has been found somewhere and circulating the dark web.
Isaac, we have a question that's come in. So I know you're going to get this because I know the presentation well. But someone has come through asking about, is it better to use with multi-factor authorization? Is it better to use a text message to sell, or do you prefer an authenticator app?
It's better to use the authenticator app. The security, the level of security that SMS text messages is being used, it's at the carrier level. So at some point it's easy to intercept, and they do something that they call SIM swap, where they can get access to your phone number, transfer to the device, and they obtain the text messages in order to get access to your account. So even though you have two-factor authentication, when the code for the security access is provided, it goes to the cyber criminals, right? So it's better always.
SIM swap happens how?
They clone the cards.
They clone the cards, your SIM card.
Similar to what they do with credit cards, right?
Now, had they accessed my phone by walking by and they can have it, or had they stolen my phone? How does that work?
No, it's getting access to your phone, close to your phone as well.
Okay.
Right. They don't really have to steal your phone, right?
Okay, so vulnerability on the phone.
Yeah. Perfect. So moving forward, password managers also have. So we keep circulating about the password managers, and I'm gonna provide more details about it. But password manager services, they also provide a way to include bridge monitoring. So they're gonna be managing your passwords. You're gonna have access to your passwords. They're gonna be encrypted, and they're gonna be able to provide you information in regards to if that specific password or that account that you're using is also compromised. Personal email accounts, we're gonna talk a little bit about it. So your personal email is often the key to your entire digital life, which is true. We do communicate, we do our business, we do access information, personal information, banking, shopping, social media, and work accounts are linked to it most of the times. If your email is compromised, attackers can reset your passwords and take control of your other accounts. Protect your personal email account by simple actions, right? So we already spoke about the passwords, secure credential practices, regularly review your account recovery settings, and ensure backup contact details are up to date. Obviously, implementing two-factor authentication. And one of the good things about good practices on your personal email accounts, sometimes take the time to log in, go into your settings, and try to find auto forward rules. Most of the time when those accounts or your account is compromised, you don't have notion of it. You're not aware of that. They have access to your account without you knowing. So they create these forward rules in the backend and the configuration of your email. And what they do is any information that has been sent to you has been forwarded to them, so they can capture bank statements, bank accounts, personal information. So it's really critical sometimes to just take a few seconds, go into your settings of your personal account, and make sure that you review if there's any forward rules that you didn't put in place there. So it's a good way to verify that your account hasn't been compromised. Let's talk about a little bit about multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication adds an extra layer of protection beyond just your password. Even if someone manages to steal or guess your password, you still have this second layer of authentication that is in place to secure your account. It makes it much harder for them to access your account. It typically combines something you know, which is your password, and with something that you have. In this case, your personal device, your personal cell phone, an application that has been installed on that device to make sure that you secure your account. There's also something that, as well as unique form identification. So these days, very popular to use face recognition. So I use it all the time on my phone. Face recognition, it secures your two-factor authentication. If that fails, then you have to use your PIN, and if it doesn't, you can use your password. So that increases a lot of the security on accessing your accounts with two-factor authentication. We should enable MFA on all the accounts whenever it's available, whenever application you use, whenever you use user ID and password. Super important. If the application, the platform supports that, make sure that you turn off two-factor authentication all the time. It's a little bit inconvenient, but it's a very way and good habit and practice to make sure that you secure your account. This is an example of some of the MFL applications, but this is not a recommendation. There's so many out there that you can use, but these are the most popular ones out there. Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, and Duo Mobile. This provide, there's some applications that you can install on your personal device, on your cell phone, and make sure that you have secure access to your platforms. Some of the questions that come up then with Microsoft Authenticator are, is it really secure and how it behaves? So two things that can happen. When your password can be is guessed or compromised, they use a tactic which is, they call it Microsoft Authenticator fatigue, which is they're gonna constantly hit your password and trigger authentication on your device. So your device is gonna be ringing nonstop, asking you to approve this connection. It's gonna be constant. And then without you knowing what exactly is triggering that, some individuals get tired of it and they approve the connection. And in that moment, they get access to your account. So if you get this type of behavior, make sure that you decline the connection and take the time to reset your password. If your password is compromised, that's why those authentication methods are being triggered. So make sure that you take the time and change the password. Another thing that is important, and I'm not sure that all the applications support that at this time, but if it is, you can use the matching number authentication. What that means is that when you're taking an action, for example, logging into your email account, as soon as you type your password, there is going to be a two-factor authentication number that is going to be displayed on your screen. That number is going to be triggered on your authenticator on your cell phone device, and you have to match that number. If something is coming up on your device with a different number that you're not using, it's not an action that you're not taking, that means that it's not triggered by you, it's triggered by somebody else, and then you will have to reset your password because once again, they're triggering those authentication methods on account that on a password that probably is being compromised.
Isaac, we're going to pause just for a minute because we've got a couple questions coming in about MFA. So one person is asking, what is the risk of biometric data being misdirected if one uses facial recognition for MFA?
In what sense redirected? I mean, the data, it's misdirected. The data normally resides on your personal device. So it's not something that is constantly communicating or somebody has access to it. it resides on your phone, right?
Okay. So not transferable is what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay. Next question. With face or biometric authentication, can the face or fingerprint be hacked or used?
Yes, it could be, especially these days they're using deep fake. However, it is hard to generate that image and actually have access to the device to put that image in front of the device. So it is possible that the deep fake generation with artificial intelligence is happening more and more. They just require a picture of yourself or find somewhere on the internet, which we're going to talk a little bit further on that in regards to digital footprint. But we have to make sure that, we're careful with the pictures that we post and how that we send them. So that impacts how they can generate these images.
Thank you.
No problem. Some water. Okay, so password managers. We spoke a lot of it. I mentioned them a few times already. It's super important to understand how they can help us, how do they work, and the benefits that they provide. So to manage tens of passwords, it's always complicated, it's tough, and risky if it's done manually. Taking in consideration the seven the 7 pages or the different security elements that we have to contemplate that we saw before, password managers are actually going to be helping with this. So they solve this by generating strong unique passwords, which complies with the 7 kind of elements that we discussed before. They store them securely in a vault, so this data is not accessible. It auto-fill credentials safely, so if you're actually browsing or need to log into an application, the interaction is between the password manager and the application and not your web browser where the credentials all store, right? So it's important to understand the difference and reduce frustration and forgotten logins, right? So it's something that we gotta keep in mind. A little bit of definition. Password manager is a software application that securely stores user credentials, user credentials in a cloud-based or premise vault, helping users stay safe online by following password creation and management best practices. A password manager has 2 core purposes: ensures the passwords aren't lost or forgotten, reducing the frustration, loss of productivity, or even financial loss. It prevents unauthorized entities from getting all of the passwords, which is, I've made reference before on having the credentials safe on your web browser, and avoids application vulnerabilities or social engineering issues with that.
So I had a question about this earlier, Isaac, that I thought you could share with our attendees today. So when you say prevents unauthorized entities from getting hold of passwords through social engineering, can you tell me what that example would look like?
Social engineering, they can use, the best example could be LinkedIn, right? It has enough information for you on your name, your company, who your boss might be, your phone number, and your email address. That is enough information to craft a strategy and become a target, and they can trigger a phishing email where they can send that communication to you in order to trick you to provide your password, user ID and password, right? So that's what.
And I think we spoke about this in the last series, but for those who didn't attend, in your opinion of the social platforms that we are most vulnerable to sharing information, it is LinkedIn, is that correct?
Correct.
Because we have so much information about ourselves that would be a prime target for impersonation. Is that correct?
Correct. So I personally choose to have you have obviously your professional title, the company that you work for. I try to use a personal email because it's my account is a personal account, using a personal platform, and try not to disclose phone numbers because they also trigger a lot of campaigns and seeking information through messaging, text messaging, and phone calls as well.
Okay. Thank you.
So as well, this is not a recommendation. It's just some examples of password managers that are popular in the market, and that we can look up and see if that's something that we can, it's interest and we can use in order to create those good habits and start protecting our information.
Okay, right on topic. We have a question about password managers. How secure are the password managers? If one password is cracked, hackers get access to one account. If a password manager is breached, then the hackers get all of my accounts. What do I do?
So that doesn't really happen. Basically, the connection between, if you choose a password manager on the cloud, that communication is encrypted end to end when you transfer in that information. That's number one. Number two, the vault that they normally would refer to is an encrypted compartment where you're saving all your information. Okay. If the company gets breached, they get access to that compartment, but it's still encrypted. They don't have access unless they have your master password. So they still have no access to that information, even though you might have. So they're secure in that way. And when they build this type of technology, I guess, for password managers, they kept in mind that, if they get access to one account, they get access to everything. So that's what is super important to have a master password that is strong, that only you know and you have access to. And if the company gets exposed and get the access to that compartment, they can access the data that is within there.
Okay, so you may have answered the second part of that question is, what about the password managers incorporated into web browsers?
That's only an extension. It's not really being stored. Well, there's other password managers that you can have locally that only you have access on that computer. And that links other things, which is keeping your computer safe and making sure that nobody has access to your computer if those that information, but is the same principle. The data on that computer or on the cloud is encrypted, and it can only be decrypted by your master password.
Okay, and a question around fencing. Which password manager applications do you recommend? So we've discussed some of them. I'm concerned about those housed in the US clouds and would prefer one outside of the USA.
That's something that we can I'll do a little bit of research. I'm not exactly. These days, that's a very, very hot topic in regards to where the data is residing. And most of the platforms that they're globally distributed, they started providing housing of those platforms based on the location. So if Bewarden is actually has a global coverage, they might have already in Canada, let's say, just to call it this way, the data centers where they store the data and where it's hosted within Canada. So I'm pretty sure that most of the platforms are driving themselves in that way. Before with Amazon and Azure and all these cloud services, there were a lot of centralized information. That was one of the in my experience, we had to review where my data was going to be residing. So in this case, it's a little bit of research, but I'm pretty sure that reaching out to their support, they're going to tell you if they have a location where they can store your data within Canada.
Okay, for the client who's asked that question, would you be kind enough to provide your email address? Because if we don't have the definite answer for you today, we will we'll research it and get back to you. So please put that through in the feed. Another question. Everyone wants to know about password manager. Isaac, do you have a preferred password manager for Mac?
For Mac, I know that Keychain is It's one of the ones that they use. I will have to probably see if there's other platforms for Mac. I'm not that familiar with
Macs.
With Mac.
This is the problem for those of us with Mac. We're always like the unwanted child. What we'll do, because we had talked about this actually earlier today, Isaac and I were speaking about Keychain. Keychain is going to be discussed in our Series 3. So if you'd like to know more about Keychain and the world of Mac, the cooler kid, We will be discussing that in the next one, but do send us your email address anyway, and we'll tell you what we find along the way. Thanks, Isaac.
Thank you. So we're going to continue with personal information and digital footprint. So digital footprint is the information about a particular person that exists on the internet as a result of their online activity. Can contain sensitive personal or organizational information. Threat actors might exploit this data for phishing or identity theft. In cyber attacks, adversaries often use digital footprint to gather intelligence about targets before launching their attack. So we spoke a little bit about how they gather that information with social engineering. Every action you take on postings, searches, purchases, location, your digital footprint, it just contributes to that, right? So it's super important. What are the digital trails that we can that can be used by criminals to identify you as a person and to research and to find information about you? So social media activity, online purchases, search history, email communication, public records, online registrations, and location data. So how can we do, or what can we do to preserve that digital footprint, right? So important, always think long-term before posting. What are you posting? Keep personal information private. Don't share anything on your postings about personal information. Privacy settings on social networking pages. Protect your privacy and the privacy of others and your friends, and apply the golden rule when online. So don't post or treat everybody the same way that you would like to be treated. In this case, in the cybersecurity spaces, don't share information that doesn't belong to you. Don't post pictures that don't belong to you. It's just to make sure that we avoid that. And this goes back to, you know, certain information, certain things that we post give a lot of information away. So something that I wanted to mention as a real world incident is on a privacy audit that revealed users unknowingly shared their home address via photo metadata, leading to unwanted contact by individuals. Always review what you post and what's embedded in your content. So,
okay, so this is when you get fancy for people like me who speak basic. Metadata is what?
So when you take a picture these days, it's very helpful. You can track back your history, where you were traveling, if you don't remember what that picture was taking. So the information is embedded in the picture in the background. Mm-hmm. What it tells you is the time, the location. You can even track it with a map, and all this information is embedded into the picture. So it's super important that if you're posting or you're sharing these pictures, all the devices these days have the ability to remove that information. So you have only the picture itself and maybe the name, but it doesn't provide anybody else with this metadata, which is the information about the picture.
So I know on my iPhone, if I see under the picture, there's an eye with a circle. And then if I press on that, it gives all that information. So that is a feature you're telling me I can turn off.
Correct.
So the risk of it is that I then take a picture, put it on Instagram, and that information then can be found by people who might have nefarious ideas, which then gives them, first of all, knowledge that I'm out of the country.
Yes, and I mean, it's important sometimes. That's why these platforms became so popular, because you're traveling, you're on vacation, you want to share how much fun you're having, but it's also to be careful about it, right? So they track a lot of information in regards to if somebody knows you, they can see, well, they're not at home, they're traveling, they're enjoying a good time, somebody at the beach,
they're distracted,
the beach, and they have information on you, right? So
okay.
So we're going to wrap up and a few key takeaways. Cybersecurity isn't about fear. It's about awareness and readiness. By securing your credentials, using MFA, managing passwords wisely, and being mindful of your digital footprint, you're taking control of digital life. So I really wanted to thank everybody for taking the time and investing the time into protecting yourself and participating on our series.
Thanks, Isaac. So we aren't done yet. Those of you who still have questions, please put them in the feed. We have a couple that are coming through now. So, Isaac, how do we protect our browser history and search behavior at home or at the office?
I liked my recommendation will be to, whenever possible, whenever you're gonna do a transaction that you're gonna it's a one-time transaction, you're gonna log into a website and make a payment or do a purchase. I use a lot of the private sessions that every browser has, so it doesn't save information on your computer. That's something that I wanted to mention in regards to protecting your identities and why I consider important to log out of the sessions that we have, right? So one of the things that we gotta do often is, and I know it's not convenient, it's something that probably bothers a lot of people when they tell you clear your cookies and clear your cache. Basically, is removing all that information. When you log in into a website, it creates a session information that is all these famous cookies that we accept when we log in, right? That piece of code contains that information for that session. If that information is stolen, they can use that little piece of coding to impersonate you and bypass the security, right? And log in as if it was you logging into that system. So what's important when you click on logout, that information is released and is clear, and they cannot be used. It cannot be used again to impersonate you. You will have to create another session and provide your identity, create that relationship to be able to log in. So that's why it's super important and related to the question that we're talking about. So clearing your cache, clearing your cookies, and using private sessions whenever possible.
Okay, so when it asked me, Isaac, if I want to accept cookies, should I be saying no?
You can say no. Sometimes there are now platforms that they won't allow you to access their website if you don't
If you
click
don't
accept.
accept, yeah,
Correct.
constantly. So in that case, accept them, but then clear my cache and clear my history.
Correct. Or
Okay.
if it's a platform where you actually logging in, you can log out, and that's gonna be able to remove that connection, so it cannot be used in the future.
Okay. So something that we've heard about constantly are the breaches and our contact information is stolen. So Canadian Tire was one that happened recently. But can you, first of all, what happens in those situations? Can you tell us? Because it's obviously very nerve-wracking. I feel all of us are very vulnerable. Most of us do online shopping, but we're hearing more and more that they've been breached. So I'm assuming my information is just out there already.
Yeah, that's why that brings you back to this very important topic of never reuse your password, right? So if you're using
Well,
the same,
Isaac, I just can't remember that many passwords. That's part of the problem.
well, so that's why we're mentioning and bringing up password managers.
Yeah.
So to elaborate a little bit more, if you reuse the same password and that password is circulating, they have access to it. If your email address has been compromised because, for example, we all go to Canadian Tire and then you decided to open a profile and have a profile with them, then they have access to your email address and they have access to your password. If you use the same password to log in into your email, they already obtain access to your email, right? If you use the same email address and password to log in into your Amazon account, they already got access to your Amazon account. So it's super important not to use the same password and have the two-factor authenticator on every different application.
Okay.
Right? Also is triggered to other things. With there are companies that are not as regulated as us on the financial industry, right? So if you have, I happened to me, I booked a room traveling. I use my personal email account and I have monitoring, obviously, my account, my email to see if it's circulating somewhere. And in fact, yes, the hotel database was compromised and it was stolen, right? But they're not regulated. They're not obliged to tell that if something happens. So my email account, I was able to find out exactly the hotel that happened, when did it happen, what information they have. So in this case, they only have my email address. And obviously, I don't use the same password, but it just creates a target, right? They have an email address that they know that is valid, that belongs to somebody that travels, and they can use it for engineering different attacks. they have my name, they can look up LinkedIn. So who is this individual, right? So that's why it's super important to make sure that you secure your account and what information you provide when trying to, in this case, the hotel, right? Booking the hotel.
So let's talk a little bit about email settings that you prefer so that we stay safe. What are those? Our email settings.
Obviously, two-factor authentication. The other one will be to review your recovery information. Most of the platforms these days, like Gmail, Hotmail, and you name it, they have the features of where a device is logging in. And if it's a different device other than yourself, they're going to give you a notification, right? So there's different settings that you have to put in place and make sure that you review those securities. They have a very good idea at least how to guide you through that. When you log in into privacy or security, they're gonna give you a list of items that you can make sure that you put in place. So, but the problem is taking the time to do it, right?
Okay. Can you remind our listeners again of your preferred password managers or some of the large ones that you mentioned?
I mean, I don't
Okay,
really
not your
wanna
preferred
recommend.
because this was not sponsored by Google, but you did say Google.
For
Okay.
passwords or for
Oh, sorry,
authentication?
password managers. Sorry. Can you do the
I
line?
think without any, I would say Bitwarden, which is one of the examples that we provided. Bitwarden.
Bitwarden.
Yeah.
Okay. Bitwarden. But again, they didn't sponsor this session, but they may want to sponsor the next one. And can you suggest, or are you aware of some of sites that people can go to that shows who's been hacked by breach or compromised organizations? Is there a listing anywhere?
There are several ones. One of the provided is Firefox. It's one of them.
Firefox?
Yeah,
Okay.
that. And I would, I mean, before going into research and trying to find a platform that does that, take the time to go into your browser. Like I said, if it's Microsoft Edge, your browser, Safari or Google Chrome or you name it, go to the password section where you store your passwords. There's going to be a feature there to verify if you have a weak password or if the information has been leaked. I would start with that. And then if you see something happening or something suspicious or a recommendation to work on something, then you can probably invest a little bit more time on finding a platform that can do a deeper investigation on your credentials.
Thanks, Isaac. Okay, so we have a CyberSmart Series 3 coming up in about 2.5 weeks. So that will be in mid-November. You'll hear from us again. Do you want to share some of the topics?
Yeah, so as we put on this slide, we're going to be talking about how to secure personal devices, keeping your mobile phone secure work from home practices. This is something that post-COVID, we started implementing, making sure that everybody was working from home, had a good way to work and secure from home. However, I know for a fact that there's very simple things that can be done and improved, and people that don't consider them. So it's important to highlight this. We'll talk a little bit of data classification and how to handle that information. And something that I made already reference to, which is the dark web and credential leaks. So tying everything together a little bit of what we discussed today.
Everyone hang on. We've got 2 more questions that seem to be super important. Are passkeys better or safer than passwords?
I don't find them, personally, I don't find them better.
Okay.
I prefer my password with two-factor authentication.
Okay. And then when it comes to password managers, Isaac, which one do you use? Without endorsing, what is your preferred one?
I use Bitwarden.
Bitwarden.
However, some of these questions, they were actually pretty good in regards to how these technologies are secure and what happened if the Bitwarden gets compromised.
Yep.
I have a personal strategy for my passwords. So
do you want to enlighten us, or
No,
is that's your own vault because you're not going to share your own?
That is my own vault.
Okay.
It's my own strategy, my personal strategy to generate the passwords because it is complex, and I have this, I try to keep as much as possible in my head without saving that information into a computer, right?
Okay.
So
And I know, sorry, while we're on this too, I also know, and it's also guilty of the position that you're in, that you have far more knowledge than someone like myself of vulnerability. You have talked to me about Wi-Fi and protecting yourself around Wi-Fi before, about turning that off in certain either places that we visit on vacation or during our travels. Do you want to enlighten that for just a minute?
it's a very different experience on a corporate environment than at a personal level. You really have to make sure that when you go into a travel place or into a cafe, that wireless, they always put the disclosure, right? That is not secure. They just
Yes.
open for everybody, right? So that's a risk to start. I use most of my time my phone.
Yeah.
I'd rather use my personal phone than connect to a wireless network that
So do you hotspot from your phone once
Correct.
you're out? Okay, and feel most protected that way rather than an unsecured Wi-Fi.
In our case, well, our devices are secure, and obviously we have VPNs to secure the connection. But in a personal use, where you go and you're trying to work out of a cafe, I preferred to use my device. That's a personal choice.
Yes.
Not everybody enjoys doing that. They prefer to use the free Wi-Fi, whatever they're sitting at. But there's a risk. There's devices that you can put. I sit down, grab a coffee, you have a device, and it generates a wireless signal that is fake. You see that signal and you see, oh, it's free. I'm going to connect. You enter. It's going to tell you, please authenticate. And you're going to put obviously the most common user ID and password that you have. And you're giving away your credentials, right? So once again, it's a fake, and it's a phishing attempt, or it's an attack that, indirectly they're just sitting there and waiting for people to use their free internet.
Okay.
We can talk about that. Maybe we can add that into another topic on
That'd be great.
on this series.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for attending and joining us today. We really appreciate it. Hope to see you again in Series 3, and please provide us with your feedback. Thanks, Isaac.
Thank you very much.